We're starting this video out with a big shout out to Eric Macramalla. You might be familiar with him and his work. He is a TSN and Forbes sports legal analyst. He also hosts the Offside Show on TSN Radio in Ottawa, Edmonton, and Montreal. CTV, ESPN, SiriusXM. He's got a lot of connections here. And Macramalla tweeted out earlier yesterday some really interesting Montreal Canadiens trade updates regarding some of the top prospects on the team. Take a look at this tweet from yesterday. It seems like teams are asking for Michael Hage, Jacob Fowler, or Alexander Zharovsky in trade discussions. That's a non-starter for the Montreal Canadiens. Let's see if management can work some magic. Now, the interesting thing about this assessment is you look at each of these names, Hage, Fowler, Zharovsky, and you hear this idea, other teams might be likely that they're asking about these guys in trades. Obviously, the immediate instinct for Canadiens fans would be, duh. Like, of course, teams are going out there and asking for these guys. If the Montreal Canadiens want to be buyers at this year's trade deadline, they have to offer up probably some younger value, some prospects, some picks. That's normally how these things go. And Hage, Fowler, and Zharovsky are at the cream of the crop when it comes to Montreal Canadiens prospects. Spoiler alert, a lot of the Habs' top prospects, quote-unquote, are now on the team. Cole Caulfield, Demidov, Hudson, these guys are not prospects anymore, they're full-fledged players. So other teams looking to negotiate with Montreal in sending the Habs some playoff assets will need to focus on these guys. Obviously, it makes sense why. These would be the guys that teams are asking for. But I do find it interesting that Macramalla is also saying that, these are non-starter names for the Montreal Canadiens. In general, it seems like Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton would not want to part with these guys if they don't absolutely have to. Macramalla then goes out there and says, let's see if they can work their magic, see if they can get some sort of a valuable playoff asset without having to give up any of those names. Top Reply says, do they know that our GM is Kent Hughes and not Brad Treliving? Furthermore, you have some arguments in the replies below. Crab goes out there and says, Hage and Fowler I get. Zharovsky? As much as being patient could be rewarded, he has a KHL contract for another 2 years, if I recall correctly. He has value, and he should not be untouchable at this point. Same thing as to what Terp is saying. I don't agree that Hage and Zharovsky should be a non-starter or untouchable in this context. If it's for an impact number 1C in his prime, like Robert Thomas, for example, the Habs have to do it. Top replies to this tweet, going out there and saying, 1C to play as a 2C. Well, many teams have 2 1Cs. That's the ideal scenario. Right. Robert Thomas is probably the only guy out there that is actually worth moving one of Hage, Fowler, or Zharovsky for. Hage may likely reach Thomas's stature or even exceed it, but Thomas is an established guarantee and immediate big impact player. This year, Robert Thomas isn't a 1C. Well, okay, look, I'll go out there and say that a lot of the degraded reputation on Robert Thomas and his value is because he is on the St. Louis Blues. We've had the song and dance throughout the numerous times we have mentioned Robert Thomas's name linked to the Red Wings, but hey, the Blues kind of stink this year, and Robert Thomas has been a very consistent point producer, scorer, two-way centerman, a Bo Horvat-like guy in the National Hockey League for quite some time now. I mean, he's been the model of consistency ever since the turn of the decade, pretty much. This year, he's on pace for 54 points, which is a decline from the 80-point clips that he was able to produce back-to-back years in limited games played. But St. Louis is not good this year, so I'm willing to give Robert Thomas the benefit of the doubt. For what it's worth, Macramalla then went out there and asked, would you do Michael Hage for Robert Thomas? And the top reply is from Marco D'Amico. This is such a trap question, Eric. Entertaining answers for sure. Jimmy Murphy said, straight up. Another reply says, maybe. The difficulty in fielding a true contender for a Stanley Cup is having numerous elite players at the same point in their development. Thomas, if acquired, would join players like Suzuki, Caulfield, Doc, Newhook, Dobson, and others at the same point in their careers. Hage is obviously not there yet. However, he and others such as Demidov, Slavkovsky, and Hudson comprise of an elite portion just coming into their game. Now, in regards to Michael Hage, I don't even know if he is, that close to being a bona fide top 6 NHL center. Let's say he makes the NHL next season. This year, he's got 35 points in 26 NCAA games and was a double point per game for Team Canada at the World Juniors. Michael Hage is a monster. There is no doubt in my mind this guy has 70-point potential at the National Hockey League level. But does he get there this upcoming season? I don't know. It's possible that he's a 40, 50-point center next season. I honestly would not be surprised if Michael Hage came onto the Habs next year and was better than, let's say, what Oliver Kapanen is right now. But obviously next season is next season. Nothing is guaranteed. It's not guaranteed that Michael Hage maybe doesn't need a year in the AHL. I honestly would say that the odds that he plays in the NHL are not even guaranteed 50-50 for the full year. He'll get a cup of coffee for sure, but whether or not he sticks around past 9 games is another conversation. Jacob Fowler, Zharovsky, you can talk about some of the same elements with these guys, although Zharovsky, he will spend more time away from Montreal before he ends up coming over. That's just the nature of KHL hockey, and the fact that he was a second-round guy, 34th overall in just the most previous draft, gives him a lot more leeway before he really needs to come over. Jacob Fowler, at the same time, I can understand if there's a conversation or two about him, but the Montreal Canadiens have such an interesting goaltending situation that maybe it's not all too likely we see a Fowler trade actually get done. For what it's worth, though, this thought process, Macramalla's tweet, it was posted onto the RHAB subreddit, and I wanted to read some of the replies over here before we ended off this video. Best I can do is Meshar, Wah, and Kakinen. Okay, that's really funny. Who in the hell made this Kent Hughes gif? I say no to all 3 being moved, Coco02 said. I'm a soft no on Fowler, but if you can get a 1C caliber player like Thomas, you trade Hage and Zharovsky and don't look back. We'll be lucky if either of them comes close to Thomas, and if they do, it won't be for years. Thomas is a top 15 center in the league, and he's young and cost-controlled. Imagine having 2 Nick Suzukis. That's what Thomas would do for us. Meanwhile, St. Louis Blues fans don't think Thomas is a 1C level player. I'm pretty wary on him after reading Blues fans' takes on him, to be honest. Isles fans said the same nonsense about Dobson. Okay, that's actually pretty true. Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Blues fans can go out there and talk about Robert Thomas and dive into whether or not he actually is a first-line caliber guy. But, Noah Dobson had some of the same hate from Isles fans immediately after that trade was done. So with all this in mind, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the idea of an Alexander Zharovsky, Michael Hage, or Jacob Fowler trade? Macramalla saying on Twitter it seems likely teams are asking for these guys. Do you think they should be non-starters? Do you think they are untouchable? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.